He didn't even stand up. 200 people in that all hands, and the new CTO ran a slide with my photo on it. Under it, one word, redundant. Then he smiled at the room and said, "We're going in a new direction, and frankly, you're not part of it." 16 years. I built the thing that moved their money. Every card swipe, every payout, every cent the company ever collected ran through a system I stood up alone in a server closet in 2010. And he announced my firing like he was reading a weather report. Security walked me out before lunch. They took my badge, they took my laptop. They were polite about it, which somehow made it worse. What Daniel didn't know, what nobody in that room knew, was that the merchant license their entire payment processor required wasn't owned by the company. It was owned by me, personally. And without my signature, it would expire in 11 days. But here's the thing about being underestimated for 16 years. You learn to keep the receipts. Let me back up. I joined when we were 9 people in a sublet above a dry cleaner. There was no payments team. There was no payments anything. When we needed to actually charge customers, I'm the one who sat on the phone with the processor for 3 weeks and got us approved. To get approved back then, somebody had to be the licensed merchant of record, a real human, personally accountable. The founders didn't want their names on it. Too much liability, they said. So I signed. My name, my license. We always meant to transfer it to the corporate entity once things settled down. Things never settled down. We grew. We raised money. We moved into a real office, then a bigger one. And every year, quietly, automatically, that license renewed under my name because I was the one who managed the renewal. Nobody ever asked. Nobody ever looked. I wasn't hiding it. It was right there in the vendor records, if anyone had bothered to read them. But the people who came in later, the MBAs, the new VPs, Daniel, they didn't read the boring documents. They read org charts. And on the org chart, I was just infrastructure. Then the acquisition started. A bigger company wanted to buy us. 9 figures. Daniel was brought in 6 months before to clean up operations and make us look acquisition ready. His whole bonus was tied to closing that deal. And in his mind, cutting expensive legacy staff like me was exactly the kind of decisive leadership that made him look good to the buyers. So he cut me, publicly, to send a message. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The license renewal date fell 11 days after my last day. I knew it because I'd quietly handled that renewal every year for over a decade. I didn't say a word on my way out. I didn't threaten anyone. I didn't send the angry all-staff email. I shook hands. I thanked the security guard by name, and I went home and made coffee. Because I understood something Daniel didn't. I didn't need to do anything. I just needed to not do the one thing they'd been silently relying on me to do every single year. For the next week, I watched the betrayal get worse from the outside. A former colleague told me they'd given my office to Daniel's new hire. They'd announced a leaner, modernized operations org in the company newsletter. Daniel had told the leadership team the transition was seamless. He even put it in the data room for the acquisition. In writing, operation streamlined, key dependencies removed. Key dependencies removed. He had no idea how right he was. Then the renewal notice went out. It went to the email address the processor had on file for the licensed merchant of record, which was me, my personal email, the one they couldn't take when they took the laptop. I read it twice. Action required within 11 days to maintain merchant account in good standing. Licensed party signature required. I didn't reply. I didn't have to. And on a Wednesday afternoon, the phone calls started. The license lapsed at midnight on the 11th day. By 9 a.m., the payment processor had flagged the account. By 11, transactions started declining. By early afternoon, the company couldn't take a single payment. Not a card, not a renewal, not a cent. In the middle of a 9-figure acquisition, their revenue went to 0. The buyer's due diligence team caught it almost immediately because that's the entire job of a due diligence team. They asked one simple question. Who is the licensed merchant of record on your primary payment account? And the company couldn't answer. Because the answer was a man Daniel had paraded across a slide and walked out of the building. I heard from my old colleague that when they pulled the vendor file and saw my name on the license, the conference room went completely silent. Daniel called me first, unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. He called back 4 times. The messages went from clipped and professional to something close to begging. Then the CEO called, then their outside counsel, then, finally, a partner from the acquiring firm, calm, careful, and very, very interested in making me happy. I want to be clear. I didn't do this out of spite. I didn't sabotage anything. I didn't delete a file or flip a switch. I simply stopped volunteering free labor to a company that had humiliated me in front of 200 people. When I finally called back, I only talked to the lawyers. I told them the truth. The license was mine. It had always been mine. I would be happy to transfer it to the corporate entity properly. As a paid consultant, on a contract, at a number that reflected exactly how essential I apparently was. The negotiation took 9 days. They reinstated the account under a new corporate license. With my cooperation, which they paid very well for, the acquisition closed 2 months later, quietly, at a lower price than the one Daniel was promised. Daniel didn't survive the diligence process. You don't get to tell a buyer that key dependencies were removed and then have the company stop functioning because of one. He was gone before the deal closed. No slide, no all hands. Just a quiet exit, the same kind he'd been so proud to give me. I never raised my voice. I never sent a single angry word. I just held the one thing they forgot to ask for. So if you've ever been the person everyone relied on and nobody respected, if you've ever had your name on a slide labeled redundant, remember this. The people who actually hold a company together are usually the ones quiet enough to get overlooked. I didn't plan my revenge. I just never signed away the thing they assumed was theirs. And when the moment came, I let the silence do the work. If this one hit different, subscribe. New story every week. Justice doesn't always come fast, but it comes.